topic is teaching constitutional law. Now, I tell you one thing. After the class is over, generally in our classroom, we should estimate for ourselves what is the entry behavior of the student, how much he knows about the subject at the time of entering into the class. After the class is over, what is his terminal behavior? This can be assessed by putting questions in the last or summarizing the reaction of the students. Very easily you could see. Now the formula is terminal behavior minus entry behavior is equal to benefit accrued. If the benefit accrued is 0, you are not at all a teacher. Terminal behavior minus entry behavior is equal to the benefit accrued. Remember this problem, whatever may be the method or strategy of your teaching, this must be borne in mind. Friends, it is not an easy task. It is not an easy task to teach. It is a passion for some people, and some people say that we are addicted to it, teaching. Otherwise, after retirement, receiving good amount of pension without spending our time elsewhere, why should we come and again start teaching? This is an addiction also, the people say. But whatever it may be, a good teaching, like good writing, is rooted in careful selection of methods, careful selection of the subject matter, and most importantly, you will have to decide on what not to do. It is as important as deciding what to do. Okay? Deciding on what not to do is as important as deciding what to do. This you should remember. One more point is that whatever may be the subject matter you are teaching, the credo of a teacher should be to update, upgrade, and enrich. It is not only gives satisfaction when you are teaching, you are personally satisfied. When you update your knowledge, when you upgrade your knowledge, when you enrich your knowledge. And then remember that even if you are old enough, now I am 69 even then now I remember how my teacher was teaching me this particular aspect. So influence of teacher, the students actually you have would be the grand students of your teacher. So influence of teacher will also be having some reflection in your teaching. You remember them, even though your strategy, your style of or your tactics of teaching is different. Now, let us enter into teaching constitutional law. Friends, remember, not all the teachers will get an opportunity to teach constitutional law. Opportunity to teach constitutional law is an exciting one and a challenging one. It would be an intellectual feast and task to make a lay person as a legal expert or a law person. It is a live wire. It is a live wire. So every day it is a challenge for a constitutional law teacher. If you are outdated, you will be a failure in your classroom. constitutional law is different in kind from other courses. I am not undermining the other courses, but it is how it is different. I told you it is a live wire. Every day's discussion. Yesterday, all of a sudden, Justice Kaul has remarked that the intolerance against the judiciary is growing. So, it relates to not to the ordinary subjects, it relates to some constitutional decisions that the court has given and the reaction of the society over that. In recent times, even a common man is started talking about the constitutional cases. Okay, that is good also in a one way, and then it is a challenge also for the teachers. Two subjects are, friends, I tell you, they are irreducible minimum for a law teacher. Whatever subject you teach, two subjects are irreducible minimum. Number one, jurisprudence. Number two, constitutional law. One, jurisprudence, I had that disadvantage, even though here and there I gave some lectures. When our dean has asked me, I told her, it is better you invite my friend, Dr. Allad Subramaniam, rather than ask me to teach on jurisprudence. That confidence I didn't have. So I didn't have that advantage of knowing jurisprudence fully. And that reflects whenever I make a discourse on rights and duties and all these things, then there is a conflict between previous decisions are there, directive principles and fundamental rights, which shall prevail. Opinion classification of rights and duties, all these things I do not have in my mind. Suppose if it were to be a jurisprudence teacher, you would have explained further, other than the provisions or decisions of the constitutional law. So, jurisprudence and constitutional law, you may opt to teach any subject, but gumption of yours cannot ignore constitutional law. Of course, constitutional law is taught at different levels. The same thing which you teach in LLB may be different when you teach it for LLM. And then when you have a discussion with your research scholar on constitutional law, students also may have different levels, even in the same classroom, different levels of students, so far as constitutional law is concerned, you can see. Now, when you think of teaching constitutional law, I mention about 9 points, 9 steps, you can say. 2 or 3 steps already we have noticed yesterday. The first step is to decide whether it is a learner-centric or curriculum-centric approach. What you are teaching in affiliated college may not be suitable to a university college, and it may not be suitable to national law schools. They are islands of excellence, but most of the advocates are produced from other colleges, institutions, not from national law schools, and the purpose for which it was established to promote good lawyers and litigative practice, ultimately good judges like that. I do not know how much they are able to be successful, but because most of them, they are opting for multinational companies. But whatever it may be, there in these islands of excellence, where I worked for nearly 9 years after my retirement, the issue is, it is learner-centric. Your teacher has the autonomy, so no botheration. He will frame the course outline and he will give the question paper. Whatever portion that is covered, he may be able to give. So it is a learner-centric one. Whereas what we have in other places is curriculum-centric. So first of all, you will have to decide on that. That is the first one. One by one, afterwards we will discuss. Next one, evolve the strategy. This also we have discussed yesterday. The third one is set the objectives. Set the objectives. Fourth one, evolve the course content. Even if syllabus is framed by others, even if curriculum is developed by others, the course content, you have the autonomy. How it is, I will discuss with you. Evolve the course content. Then assess the challenges in dealing with the constitution. Sixth one, evolve appropriate method of teaching. Seventh one is how far you will be successful in using ICT. And then you will have to have the scope for review of what you have done. Then decide on evaluation methods. Once again, I tell you, there are 9 steps for a successful constitutional law teacher, with stress on different aspects. These are all strategies. Number 1, whether it is learner-centric or curriculum-centric. Number 2, evolve the strategy. Number 3, set objectives. Number 4, evolve the course content. Number 5, assess the challenges in dealing with the constitution. And then evolve appropriate methods of teaching, use of ICT, then review, then decide on evaluation methods. These are all go to build up the strategy for your constitutional law class. Wonderful. With regard to first step, as I have told you, we have already discussed about it. Teacher, learner and curriculum. If the stress is on learner, it is learner-centric. If the stress is on curriculum, it is curriculum-centric. And then stress is on teacher. It is teacher-centric, which is very rare thing in India, especially. And then the second thing is evolve the strategy. Yesterday I was telling you about this strategy. This strategy also is individualistic. It is an art, I have told you, and it is an individualistic one. A strategy doesn't follow a single track, I have also told you. Is more comprehensive than the method you are adopting. When we are to achieve some objective, keeping that objective in mind, you will have to evolve the method and strategy both. So, strategy is the method utilized to realize the goals as stated by Stone and Maris. Okay, if you see, there are variety of teachers. Many people must have taught you. I give my own example. We were taught by the teachers like Professor Muhammad Ghaus, K.S.N. Murthy, C.K.N. Raja, under whom I did my PhD, and then Professor V. Balasubramaniam, and then T.P. Sudarshan Rao. These are all examples. Muhammad Gauss' strategy was different. He used to take latest case and go back to the old case. Okay. So he would have started at that time when we were taught, Maneka Gandhi case was not there, only APO. Satwan Singh versus APO was there. So he would start from there and go back to A.K. Gopalan's case. He was highly successful teacher. Now, after that, I never saw any teacher teaching in that manner. K.S.N. Murthy is like grapes, giving grapes. Draksha rasa, you say. Everything he gives for your digestion directly you can swallow. You need not even feel the skin like plankton. You need not do it. Everything will give. That is why when he starts college, rather when he completes his course during that academic year, he will not be able to complete. He used to take private classes from 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock. He used to give lecture. Nobody used to move even an inch. That is K.S.N. Murthy. C.K.N. Raja is a different method he has adopted. The method was at that point of time when we just came to our profession, whoever is a new person, they used to allot legal and constitutional history. My friend will tell you, Allad Subramaniam is light in rather dealing with that. So, even the students were not feeling happy to hear that legal and constitutional history. And the other subject is jurisprudence. Some people were very much interested, some people were not very much interested. And then when we invited C.K. and Raja for delivering the lecture on legal and constitutional history, the ordinary students, not bright students, after the class was over, they came out and told us that it is like seeing an English movie. So it was a demonstration like. When I tell you one more point, I got more than first class marks in research methodology, considered to be rather intelligent in that, but at the time when I passed out of LLM, I only memorized it. C.K. and Raja and myself, we were on the board of Madras University. When we were moving to the market or the bazaar or to the hotels, then he started explaining research methodology, taking examples from the surroundings. A wonderful thing. Now I am considered to be a teacher of research methodology only because of C.K. and Raja. So it was like demonstration. Why I am telling all these things? Another professor is there. He is a wonderful scholar. No parallel. When we invited some foreign professors also, they were talking to him and they told us that you have a wonderful teacher. Very good scholar. But when he enters into the classroom and finishes 1 hour, if you ask us, we will not be able to tell what he imparted any skill. There is no terminal behavior, no entry behavior, and zero, big zero. But he was a scholar, he was telling the names of wonderful persons. One of my friends, I think Allad Subramaniam himself, one day started very seriously writing when the seminar was going on and then he is delivering the lecture. Halfway through, he lost his concentration. So, each one has his own advantage, style of teaching. So, you will have to evolve a strategy for yourself. reflections of the teacher will be there to clarify your doubts. If you close your eyes, your teacher will come to your mind and he will clarify. You remember your classroom. But when you go to the classroom, what is required is you will have to evolve your own strategy because the composition of the class may be different. Okay. So, that you will have to remember when you rather evolve this strategy. The third one and crucial one is that set the objectives. Nobody will prevent you from setting the objectives of your subject. That gives you a lot of scope and grip over your subject. For example, I give, with reference to constitutional law, let the students understand goals and values of the Constitution. How many of our teachers gave us this input? Tomorrow we will discuss about values. So I am not discussing about that now. Second thing is that in the very first class after evolution of the Indian Constitution, some introduction, what you will do is you will give the definitions of what is Constitution and at best what is constitutional law. Okay. Then are you discussing at length about constitutionalism? Are you referring to Lord Acton? That is, almost the features of constitutionalism there are negative. Negative in nature. Power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And you will give the examples how to control the power. Is it against the democracy? Is it against sovereignty? That you will discuss. But after that, it is developed into positive constitutionalism, and then this positive constitutionalism, now it led to the recent books you must have referred, transformatory constitutionalism or transformative constitutionalism. This transformative constitutionalism, one has to assess and tell whether it is a transformative constitutionalism or not. But our judges, in their wisdom, if you refer to Joseph Schein or Navtej Singh's case, in both these cases, the judges themselves have claimed they have adopted this transformative constitutionalism. So, in the beginning of the class itself, let the student understand these three aspects. What is constitution? What is constitutional law, which is not mere bare text of the constitution? It includes conventions and the decisions of the Supreme Court by virtue of Article 141. They are binding on all other courts. How it becomes part of the constitutional law. And then conventions you will have to tell. And then juristic opinions, which is not there in India. But of course, there are wonderful jurists like Upendra Bakshi, and you can refer to their opinion, and they are not binding, of course, they are not part of constitutional law as such. So, these three aspects, think of it, how beautiful it would be to talk to our students on constitutionalism, constitutional law, and constitution, again triangle. That is not the golden triangle, this is golden triangle for the teacher. And then, let the student grasp over the black letter rules. Black letter rules. Do not ignore the bare text of the Constitution. Because certain things which we face while reading the interpretive analogy by the Supreme Court, we ourselves will have some doubts. How can there be so many decisions of privacy even prior to case, Puttaswamy's case, and why should they validate it in privacy case? How can there be two-member bench to decide interpretation of any constitutional principles? Because Article 145 Class 3 requires 5-member bench minimum. So you will have to give the opportunity to the students to have the grasp over black letter rules. They can also point out the loopholes or defective drafting if it is so. And then how to apply those black letter rules to the new fact situations or patterns, getting them to see. This is our independent exercise and hypothetical exercise. You can give it to the students. And then one of the objectives that appears to me is that you must, while teaching, you must see that the students understand seemingly minor changes in the facts leading to different decision. What were the best examples? There were 2 decisions of the Supreme Court. Same judges, same bench, gave different opinions. Do you remember that case? Kati Ramning Rawat's case, you see. State of West Bengal versus Anwar Ali Sarkar. Same set of facts. One is Gujarat case, other is West Bengal case. Both related to special courts. Only difference is preamble. We say preamble's weight is less in interpretation, even though it cannot totally exclude. But because of that change in preamble, in Kati Ramning Rawat's case, they held the action of the government valid, whereas in Anwar Ali Sarkar's case, they said that it is invalid. Similarly, you take the cases, Northern Caterers case as well as Magan Lal cases. These 2 cases also, similar set of facts. 2 different laws are there to acquire the property. The government at its discretion may opt for one or the other. In one case, it was struck down because it is disadvantageous to the petitioner. In another case, they held it valid, saying that Article 14 doesn't require fanatical approach. Aligarh Swami J. Okay. So, same set of facts, bit different. Okay. But there will be a change in the decisions. And then, friends, I will come to one more case that is different, Vajravelu Muraliyar's case, which made 4th Amendment to the Constitution obligatory. That is different issue. When you are teaching constitutional law, you will have to understand that you will have to impart to the students the basic knowledge about judicial craftsmanship and strategies. Judicial craftsmanship and strategies. How do you do it? You are going to teach judicial review. Instead of teaching it under Article 32 or Article 226, teach them under Article 30 itself. Doctrine of Judicial Review. And then, while teaching the judicial review topic, you will have to make a distinction between judicial review and judicial power. Judicial power is a larger one, larger circle. two concentric circles. Bigger circle is judicial power, and inside that judicial power structure, you have judicial review. Judicial review is confined only to the apex courts. It is power of the court. It is also judicial power. Ultimately, that of the Supreme Court to test any measure on the touchstone of the Constitution and refuse to enforce those measures if they violate the Constitution. And then automatically, when you are teaching judicial review, students will start asking the questions relating to judicial activism. What is judicial activism? Judicial review itself is not defined. Where is it defined? Judicial activism. Where is it defined? Judicial dynamism. Where is it defined? Judicial overreach. Where is it defined? Judicial usurpation. Where is it defined? Judicial self-restraint. And now we are getting another expression into our field, judicial underreach. Because of the failure recently of the Supreme Court to take care of vulnerable sections of the society suo motu, when their rights are affected, especially what is called, that is immigrant laborers, okay? And then all these expressions, if I start again discussing these things, today is not sufficient. I am only indicating to you, these things have to be explained. In one of the books, as I told you, Upendra Bakshi has explained what is judicial dynamism and judicial activism. And then automatically, you can also read Matthew's book, An Equality Democracy. That is a wonderful book. You can see, and then all these things you can explain. The other objectives of your constitutional law teaching will be to make the student aware about the procedural settings of the case. Cases do not arise in vacuum. They arise from the society. So naturally, you will have to think about other disciplines. That is the very purpose of starting 5-year course. Like history, political science, sociology, economics, all these things, they do require a treatment when you talk about the cases. Migrant laborers, as I have told you, it has sociological implications, economic implications, political implications, all these things, they form part of it. And then there is one more vital thing, gender perspective in the teaching constitutional law is very, very important. Okay? And then you may ask me a question. Can you give 1 or 2 examples of that? I have already given recent example. You think about some time back, the position or the status of the President of India. There is one case, Shamsher Singh's case. In National Law School, we have experimented with success cooperative teaching. Professor Vijay Kumar, Professor Mallar and myself, we 3 used to go. Even though we do not have difference of opinion about a particular academic topic, we take different perspectives. But of course, Professor Vijay Kumar has a specific philosophy. He says that President has powers independent of this one. He is the real classical presidential system. To that extent, he will argue. And he wants that Shamsher Singh shall be overruled as quickly as possible. Professor Mallar tells about the constitutional provisions and protector of judicial decisions of the Supreme Court like. And then I used to argue look at the rather concurrent judgment of Justice V.R. Krishna here in Samsher Singh's case, who gives elaborate survey. If you see that one, you need not read even P.B. Mukherjee's case on which Vijay Kumar is dependent upon, because everything is quoted, everything has is given his reasoning. But he said ultimately, we have the cabinet form of government only. So that is one example wherein political science as well as constitutional law. There are other areas as well, federative problems. Can you devoid of political influence, can you discuss that case? Similarly, Article 262 or 263, can you discuss? And the economic perspectives, GST, except teaching in the classroom, those who are having taxation as their teaching subject, they may teach more. But for constitutional law teacher, except explaining Constitution, 101 Amendment Act, what more we can do? But it has economic aspects or perspectives. Human rights perspective nowadays. After Maneka Gandhi's case, you can see there is a quite shift in the interpretive analogy, and judges started saying that the human rights jurisprudence is part and parcel of Article 21, starting from Sunil Vatra's case. Okay, so that is human rights perspective. Previously, we used to tell all human rights are not fundamental rights, or fundamental rights may be human rights. Even now, there is no fundamental right of asylum that is there with regard to human rights. And okay, we are not discussing about going deep into that. Several things we will have to cover. And then, what is this? Time is 11:55. And then it is dangerous to teach. And then one thing I wanted to tell you, when you give gender perspective, think of Article 13, Clause 3. In its definition of law, it includes custom or usage having force of law in India. How can the religion-based personal laws, whatever are customs, prevail, discriminating women? So this angle one can think. And then one thing you should remember is that it is dangerous to teach the course with a particular perspective unless you are well grounded in that discipline. That means the responsibility of the teacher is more. He will have to diversify, start reading everything under the sky. Okay. One more objective should be, you must have the idea of exposing the students to the plurality of opinions. Not only majority opinions, dissenting opinions, how dissenting opinions of yesteryears have become majority opinions or inspired other judges. In ADM Jabalpur's case, Khanna was inspired by Makhan Singh's case, where Soka Subbarao was there to give the judgment dissenting, I think. Okay. Not only that, Kharak Singh's case, dissenting opinion, how they were influencing. Okay. All these things, you expose them, dissenting opinion. Several examples are there. And then you may have to tell about the importance of concurrent judgment. Just now I told you the concurrent judgment of Justice V.R. Krishna here. And then you will also should inform. My learned colleague Ravindran was asking one question previously to one speaker in another webinar, that the Supreme Court nowadays, is it bothered about, or is it having the conscience of the precedent? the judgments of the Supreme Court, whether they are following, you may have in your mind the theoretical aspect, Bengal immunity class and other things. But I will give you an example wherein when there is Sundar Ramaiyer versus State of Andhra Pradesh case, without quoting that case, Justice Koka Subbarao had given a decision in Dev Chandra versus State of Uttar Pradesh. Sometimes we may also come across the judgments which suffer from per incurium. Per incurium. So the judges have that ability or craftsmanship to distinguish whenever there is a binding precedent saying that this is quite different, the facts are different. Okay, so that might see one has to give it to the students for proper appreciation of the subject. One more thing, touching upon recent constitutional decisions is very, very important. Otherwise, a constitutional law teacher will become irrelevant. A teacher, suppose we were taught only up to 1976 or 78. After that, under the influence of the liberal attitude of the Supreme Court, as Upendra Bakshi said, after Maneka Gandhi, India had become, Indian Supreme Court has become republic. Okay. If I am not in touch with the latest opinions, I cannot explain the constitutional law principles. If I am not in touch with Navtesh Singh's case, I cannot, even IPC teacher will not be able to explain 377, section 377, 498 IPC, Joseph Shine's case. That is why I said in the beginning, whatever may be the field of your teaching, any subject you choose, constitutional law will have its implications. Take personal laws. When you say about section 9 of Hindu Marriage Act, restitution of conjugal rights, can't they teach Sarojini Devi versus Sudarshan Kumar? And prior to that, how the Delhi High Court and Andhra Pradesh High Court had divergent opinions. And then when you teach this Joseph Shine case, what happened to Saumitri Vishnu case? The father Chandrachud had delivered the judgment there. And prior to that, Yusuf Abdul Aziz versus State of Bombay, all these things. So you will have to be in continuous stream. You will have to travel till you reach the sea. You shall be in the stream of that river of case law on the Supreme Court of India. So, when you are stressing on case law, it is your bounden duty to tell the students, write case comment, how to write case comment. There are certain basic parameters to tell about case comments. There are several methods are there, but of course, it must be very clear. Give the citation and then give the rules or the regulations or the statutes that are impugned, the articles involved, brief facts of the case. In some of the constitutional cases, they don't require facts, but issues involved, what were the previous decisions, and then you will have to tell them about the dictum or ratio decidendi. One more thing is that let the students appreciate even the arbiter dicta, because this arbiter dicta may be useful for some other decision. So, and then ask them to write critical comment What are the logical things that are relevant things that are ignored? What are the irrelevant things that are taken into consideration while deciding the case? Is there any per incuriam? Whether they have ignored certain precedents. So all these things will definitely give rise to a case comment at elementary level. If they are practicing it, they will become experts. Friends, I tell you, constitutional law can be taught just like a doctrinal course. What do you mean by that? Bare text of the Constitution, conventions, and then Supreme Court cases. Not more than that. Don't think that it is a wasteful exercise or not correct exercise. Definitely it has its merits. Unless you are well versed in these things, you will not be able to do the practical things about the Constitution. First, you must be a scholarly outlook you must have. Then critical approach you can have over the case taught. For example, when you are teaching the preamble itself, don't go to the intricacies. I ask you one simple question. Can you define justice? Can jurisprudence teacher also satisfactorily define justice? He may be giving the opinions of several philosophers, theories of justice. And then, idea of justice. Amartya Sen had written, did he give concluding definition of justice? Similarly, can you give definite definition of equality? Inequalities can be defined. If a person or body of persons are in a position to dominate the will of the other because of the power relationship, that is inequality. Certain inequalities are accepted. Certain things are natural and inherent. Amitabh Bachchan, Jai Bahaduri, this is inherent heights. But the thing is that if you are asked to define what is equality, are you going to define relative equality or formal equality or meritorious equality or protective discrimination? Number of shades are there, but equality definition is very difficult to define. So, you may have to go a bit further in explaining these things by taking the help of jurisprudence. Okay. And then I tell you, in case Puttaswamy says, each judge was referring to natural rights and natural law. Natural rights and natural law, which is diametrically opposite to A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras. Okay. And then, after giving them that critical approach, analogous approach is also required, because every judge of the Indian Supreme Court are habituated to refer to American Constitution. Even though certain things are not applicable, even though they do not apply that one, Schenck versus New York, clear and present danger test is considered to be an exploded doctrine in some other Indian case, like I think Babulal Marathe's case. But at the same time, our people do refer to American cases. I will take another opportunity to explain the differences between American Constitution and Indian Constitution. But the thing is that you are supposed to give what is the first part of the Article 14, second part of the Article 14, rule of law, and all these things. You will have to tell about these things. Another line is that objectives. We are now still discussing about the objectives. New approaches. How Article 356 is politicized. How particular article is exploited or not properly understood, like Article 256. Okay, and then you have so many reports on federative principles like Sarkaria Commission, Poonchi Commission, and also there is a commission to review the constitution, but substantially, did they do anything about it? This is an approach only. Whether you give it or not, it is okay. There is no problem. Now, we will go to another strategy. Evolve and evaluate. Another step we are doing. Fourth step. Evolve and evaluate course content. You may not evolve the course content, but you have the freedom to evaluate the course content. That is why I said in constitutional law field, this teacher will somehow or the other, if she wants to exercise autonomy, she will have power. One thing which you should understand, as I have told you yesterday, there is a difference between curriculum and syllabus. Set objectives for each unit. Syllabus is specification of the topics. Over. Whereas curriculum requires the goals to be set. Besides curriculum and syllabus, you have another thing, course outline. Full autonomy to the teacher. In National Law School, we have that opportunity, course outline. And then we start teaching. So based upon these evaluation of course content or evolving the course content, the pedagogy is developed. What is the pedagogy? It is the discipline that deals with theory and practice of education. That is the first thing. It concerns the study of how best to teach, which includes instructive strategies that we are discussing, taking into account students' background, knowledge or experience, and the environment, the college in which you are working. Suppose you are working in a private college like wherein you are ill paid, you cannot maintain yourself. Can you think of all these things? The library is nil equipped or ill equipped. You do not have scope for internet facilities. How do you do all these things? Okay. Now leaving these things aside, coming back to the constitutional content of the subject matter, it is always in flux. In the syllabus, they may say Article 21. In 1950 also they must have stated Article 21. But in 1950, you have only one case. A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras, like that. When you come to 60s, you will have few more cases. Now, you require one particular trimester to teach Article 21 itself. It is not an exaggeration. Simply, it is not an exaggeration. I am telling you that it is a fact. Article 14, what it was previously. Now, how many doctrines are introduced? Doctrine of classification, which we know. Now, doctrine of arbitrariness is there. Doctrine of principles of natural justice Even Article 311 cases can be challenged here after Tulsiram Patel's case. And then you have legitimate expectation, Wednesbury principle. And then nowadays, Justice Nariman is giving decision like manifest arbitrariness, the doctrine of manifest arbitrariness. But what we should remember is, when it is always in flux, in the time frame that is given, how to balance it. When the teacher doesn't have even minimum facilities to do it, they will become disinterested lot in making live the course content. The teachers in their wisdom may correlate certain aspects, but it will not be a full length. Next, step 5. This is very, very important in the sense you will have to assess the challenges. Don't think that there will not be challenges. In any subject, there will be challenges. Okay. Even law of contracts also you face challenge. It is not totally settled like thing we can say. Okay. In law of evidence, section 27 was challenged under the Constitution, even though it is 1860 or 1872, I don't remember. So, every subject has its challenges. Constitutional law has more challenges. Because if you see, number of books are written, even saying that Supreme Court is in politics. And then Rajiv Dhawan's book. And then you can see recently Fali Nariman, who has written a book on, what is that? God Save the Honorable Supreme Court. So Supreme Court itself is in politics, and if you refer to those books, you will find that mostly they are constitutional law cases only. Especially during the period between Sajjan Singh and I.C. Gorakhnath and A.D.M. Jabbalpur, the Supreme Court was considered to be in politics, playing oppositional politics. That was the criticism that was rather leveled against the Supreme Court. So, when you start teaching these cases, you may face challenges in the classroom itself. I will give you one example. Gorakhnath case, you know it. Prospective overruling. What does it mean? The action of the legislature in amending the Constitution, especially 17th Amendment Act, which was in issue, was not struck down. In future, let the Parliament not take up any amendment to the fundamental rights. That was the decision. So till then it is valid. One student asked a question that, sir, what is the issue? Issue is whether Constitution 17th Amendment Act is valid or not. What is this decision? Decision is that 17th Amendment Act is valid. Then how can you say prospective overruling is a ratio decidendi? It is only an arbiter dicta. Is it not a challenge to explain? Okay. So like that, we may face challenges when you discuss about the cases, when you discuss about some provisions of the Constitution, which I will come now. Okay, some provisions of the Constitution, they will say how these things are valid or how defectively they are drafted and all these things. Preparation of an informal outline as to how you should teach in the classroom, besides the syllabus or curriculum supplied by respective universities. Select source material. No source material is complete, take one basic source material, add on to that. Every teacher teaching constitutional law must have a private syllabus as to how you should go about a particular topic, which includes rough outline, how we should discuss each issue, and then it should be sequential topics. Okay? And then there was some question some time back. Is it meta law? You are saying constitutional law is fundamental law, laying down the rules and the regulations according to which the state is governed. All the rules, regulations, notifications, bylaws, other statutes shall run under the constitution, not above the constitution. So can you say that it is a meta law? Think over that. Meta law means it is sum of legal rules regulating relationship between different races of the universe, not only on the earth, even from the space. Okay? Prohibition on damaging the race that other planets like Mangalyaan, all these things we are having. Do you have a right to spoil their race? All these things. The right of race of self-defense, the right to adequate living space, all these things, they come under meta law. Constitutional law as such doesn't cover all those aspects, even though by their judicial interpretation, they may bring their rights under Article 21. Okay, now we will go to step 6. Evolve appropriate method of teaching. Yesterday I have told you number of things. By want of time, I was not elaborative in that aspect. Okay. Now, if you adopt Socratic method for constitutional law, I said that there are several methods. No uniformity is there. There is modern Socratic method also. Yesterday we have discussed. When you adopt Socratic method of law to the constitution, number 1, call the students randomly. Randomly you should call. Because if you pick and choose particular student like, that may affect the whole process and the learning itself will be collapsed. And then number 2, relatively short inquisitions can be placed. Okay, relatively short inquisitions. And then teacher's choice of student, as I have told you, should not be there, should be avoided. The opposite option is panel method. We arrive at a panel, but it has its own limitations. One panel may say, we got very good question. The other panel may say, no, we have got useless one. But when you discuss about the case law, the real problem that lies in constitutional law is to explain the opinions that are opaque, poorly explained, or plainly at odd with Supreme Court precedent. How do you go about it? Much classroom discussions dedicated to identify certain judicial ball hiding is a very difficult task, but you should somehow overcome this particular aspect. Now we are coming to challenges in the classroom. This is step 7, I remember. Number 1, the questions about the defective drafting. You are teaching Article 15. For example, state shall not dispose any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. So 6 prohibited markers are there. Age is not a prohibited marker. Sex is a prohibited marker. Okay, understand? Under Article 15, Clause 3, you will find an enabling provision. Previously, we are saying that it was an exception, but now we should say that it is an enabling provision. 15 Clause 3 says, nothing in this article shall prevent the state from making any special provisions for women and children. Understand? Women agreed because sex is a prohibited marker. Their understanding at that time, 2 different expressions are not used. Biological expression and otherwise expression. Gender, all these things. They have used the word sex. Okay, we can understand special provision for women. But age is not a prohibited marker. How can you put children under Article 15, Clause 3? We justify by saying that it is a special concern towards children that prompted the constitutional makers to have that provision. Second thing is that you may also have to see trade, commerce and intercourse. 301 to 307. Worst form of defective drafting lies in these articles. Okay. Because of paucity of time, I am not reading and explaining that one. Read it. You will find it. And then there is a confusion that is created, resolved by the Supreme Court subsequently, that law in force and existing law. Is there any difference between these? And then there will be sensitive issues if it is constitutional law class. There will be sensitive issues. Directly the students will say, sir, what is your opinion? Who cares for our opinion? We are not Supreme Court judges or other things. But sensitive issues do come. Whether it is a CAA, whether it is Article 370, or whether it is a triple talaq or Sabarimala case. So, these sensitive issues we are bound to discuss, but as a teacher, value neutrality is advocated. You may have your personal opinion, but value neutrality is more important for the teacher on constitutional law. You should not try to impose your own opinion. Okay, and then one more challenge is that the relevance of particular provision for their future practice or occupation or other things. The classroom discussion is alienated with real life situations. Who is bothered about Shamsher Singh's case? We took nearly 5 to 10 hours for discussing Shamsher Singh's case. Who is bothered about Article 311? There is separate tribunal now. Not many people are interested. So, what will happen is, when we are explaining Golden Triangle, 14, 19 and 21, we can bring relevance. Rights are Golden Triangle, but can you apply the same test of reasonableness? When you think of reasonable classification under Article 14, you noted 12 points in Ramakrishna Davniya versus Justice Tendulkar's case, doctrine of classification, that is one aspect, and reasonable restrictions. Reasonable classification there, reasonable restrictions are here under Article 19. Judicial approach will be different. Okay. And then I may also tell you the students what is the situation with reference to Article 21? Fair, just and reasonable. Another angle. The students may ask you, rather, the questions relating to the doctrines that are evolved. If you want to teach all those things, Justice Nariman has used the doctrine of chilling effect. Subsequently, recently also it is used. What is that chilling effect? Doctrine of chilling effect. With reference to Article 19(1)(a). Okay. In Shreya Singhal's case. And in Puttaswamy's case, another judge has used the word constitutional dark matter. We know secret constitution has evolved by Perry some time back. What is this dark matter? So these are the challenges which you will face in the classroom. And then one has to think about moot court competitions based upon constitutional law, if you can give. The divergent opinions you will be able to synchronize. Another thing is that in the classroom, this is the least one, they will ask you, sir, please allow us to write down the notes, be slow. Class notes. They also call it as running notes or jumping notes, I do not know. But when they say so, I will tell them, I will give you my PowerPoint presentation or notes, if any. If you start writing running notes, this will stall the flow of the teacher. They may also miss the points. So, that is my strategy. Of course, some people may try to give the notes because it is advantageous for the students. Then think of the last step or before step. Use of ICT. I found ICT can be meaningfully supplemented with classroom work. Recently, I have sent to my students, we are compelled to be computer savvy, as Professor Alladi said. I have sent to them the lessons, videographed lessons, and then uploaded my PowerPoint presentations. While doing so, I have also uploaded 2020 cases regarding prison. We know this conflict, whether right to vote is a statutory one or non-statutory one. In Lok Prahari's case, what they said, in Rajabala's case, what they have said, all these things. So, recent case I was able to upload. So, think regular classes also, when you are teaching, the latest material, if you can upload to your student, that will be a useful one. In education, if you want to make it more student-oriented, this information and communication technology is required. And then I don't want to waste much time. Yesterday we have discussed certain things about the advantages or disadvantages. Already I am receiving some signals like 12:32, I think, time. So I think my class is over. Thank you very much For your patient listening, evaluation methods is individualistic. That is the only thing that you will have to think of, the ninth step of this lecture. Thank you very much, my dear participants.